Jay here for Stretford Paddock. That's Joe Smith. And this is a bit of a, I don't want to say post-match review because it's been well over 24 hours since the debacle of the loss to Everton. But we are going to talk a little bit about that match, but also more of a look at Ruben Amorim and the system. Yeah, because that has become a hot talking point in a minute. There's a load of debate going on about it. It feels like Louis van Gaal's philosophy. It's like everyone's talking about the system with Ruben Amorim. Is it the system that's to blame? Does he need to change the system? Does he need to tweak the system? Is it all about the system? Or is it other things? Or is it the system and other things as well? So we'll be getting into all that. First of all, how are you? I've not spoke to you on camera post Everton. How are you feeling?
Gutted.
Yeah.
It was a real kick in the bollocks, that one. Yeah. It felt... like of all the games to not lose, that was the one. It's one of the poorer teams we've played in a while. You're at home, they're down to 10 men, and you lose not just on quality but on sort of fight and energy and intensity. It's really unacceptable across the board. That really, really bad. Yeah, there was no excuses for that performance. No. Sometimes you can go lucky goal or bad decision by the ref or one or two players just didn't turn up and that cost us or whatever. But it was just abysmal, just across the board almost. There's very few, if any, really good performances by United players, and we were against 10 men for the majority of the game, so there's no excuses, like you say. Plus it came after a big break. I know some players had international football, but let's be real, most of the players were well rested. So yeah, just a shambles from top to bottom. But following that defeat, I saw you did the review with Scotty, and there was a lot of talk in the comments in the chat, and you mentioned it as well, about the system. Not to get too sort of cerebral, but when people talk to you about the system, what do you think of? Do you think of just the formation? When you're talking about the system, what is that to you? I'd like to talk about the wider system and what the parts of it are. And I'm not an expert. I don't know everything about the inner workings of the pressing triggers and who's meant to be where for every single second of the system. I'm not going to claim that I do. But I think for a lot of people, or certainly for some people, the system boils down to the formation. Yeah. And they can't separate the two things. We spoke about this when things were going well, when things were going bad, then it's been pretty good. Then we've had this terrible game. And for a lot of people, just 3 at the back, 5 at the back, 3 centre backs, whatever you want to call it, is just something they don't like, and that whenever things go wrong, that is the reason why they went wrong. And when things go well, that isn't the reason why things went well. It's it's X, Y, and Z. And then we go back to the point of fundamentally, this system can't work. And what I would say to that is, look at the way we played against Fulham, against Man City, against Brentford, then against Liverpool and against Sunderland and against Chelsea. They're not the same. Look at the way we played against Forest. Yeah. It's not the same as how we played at the start of the season or last season. The system is an overarching word for the whole way Man United approach football. And that isn't just the formation. The formation is a very small part of it. And obviously we'll get into some of the details of it, and just some of the details that it seems to me from watching Man United. Obviously, like I said, I don't have my coaching badges. I don't claim to be some sort of tactical expert. But I think when people just boil it down to simply 5 at the back, 3 at the back, that is such a simplification to the point where it's almost becomes irrelevant to me. I don't think that is the best way to talk about what is going wrong with United. I think that's such a one-dimensional way to look at things, and I think a lot of people, they're just ready and waiting to pounce on this idea of the system as soon as things go wrong. And there have been a lot of things go wrong, so you've had plenty of opportunity to do that, or people have had plenty of opportunity to do that, and I understand having criticisms, but I think just boiling it down to the formation it just doesn't make any sense to me personally. What do you think?
I think it's a combination of things. I think for me, I get your point. It's a valid one about how the system, even the formation changes within games. I've noticed that. Yeah. I've seen it before where Mercedes de Ligt's almost gone into midfield. We've had Harry Maguire pushing up, and it's like, hang on a minute, this isn't 3-4-2-1 or whatever. This has changed into... There was one point, I remember watching a game once, I think it might have been Fulham in the FA Cup, where we were playing 4-4-2 at one point, and I was in heaven because I love 4-4-2. I mean, we changed within that game. But from where I was sat at a different point. I could see how we'd sort of altered the shape and the formation. I was like, oh my God, 4-4-2 is my favourite ever formation. We didn't play like that the whole game, and ultimately we lost on penalties, so I'm not saying it was a success. I just noticed there was that change. The issue for me with this system and this formation talk is when you have bad results and when you have areas of the pitch where you seem like you are short people are going to highlight that you've got an extra centre-back. People are going to go, do we need De Ligt, Euro and Shaw, as people were saying the other night, when there's big gaps in midfield or whatever. And I think you pointed out, you made a good point on the review, you said, you argued the case that even some defenders on the pitch who might be classed as defenders aren't necessarily playing in defence. Like, I think you, forgive me if I'm getting this wrong, but I think you mentioned like Dorgu at the times was like a winger, or Delo was like a winger when he came on. You know, if you were to go on their Wikipedia, it'd probably say fullback or whatever, winger, but they're playing like an attacker. And certainly for the last sort of half an hour or whatever against Everton, when we were sort of more, not bombarding, I think that's a bit of an exaggeration, but we were certainly attacking quite a lot.
Yeah.
It felt like you had, the formation at that point was like 3-0-7. And that was a slight problem for me at times. It's not necessarily just the Everton game, and that was one of it. At times, midfield looks a little bit open. And I think this is an issue we've gone back to Eric Ten Hag, and it's not been dealt with. You could argue it's an issue going back post Alex Ferguson. We've never fully dealt with the midfield problem at Manchester United, even with our signings. We all go on about this wonderful summer we've had. And when I say we, I mean we. I do as well. Mbumo, mint. Cunha, mint. Sesko, mint. Love all that. Even Diego Leon, one for the future. I get it. And we just ignore the midfield. The only midfield signing under Ineos has been Ugarte, and the guy can't even get off the bench. He can't even get off the bench in a European final that's going to give you Champions League football. It tells you how little the manager thinks of him. He just doesn't rate him at all. Ten Hag didn't rate him. And that's the only midfield that Ineos have bought. So even though we like Ineos' signings, by and large, I think most people, you know, me and you have sat around this table and we've gone about how good Euro and De Ligt and all the other signings that Ineos have made are. The one signing they've got wrong, without a doubt, is the one midfielder they've bought. And that's been a problem, because we just don't seem to have addressed the midfield situation, either with the players we bought or with the tactics we have. It just feels like there's a problem there. That's the biggest bugbear I've got about Manchester United.
I think on the tactical front, the one thing I would say is, I watched an interview with Amorim, it may have even been the sort of second half of the pre-match press conference, and if it wasn't, it was certainly an interview from the last few days, where he talked about this change in style. Because before the game, it was accepted that he had been changing the style and the system and, you know, all that sort of stuff quite readily. I think we've all seen that. And he was asked about why he's done that, why he has gone more direct, why. Because for me, that's as big a part of the system, or maybe bigger than just the sort of theoretical formation on the pitch. And he said it's because we don't keep possession. We can't keep possession. We can't play out from the back. We gave the ball away in our half more than pretty much any other team in the league last season, and United can't keep the ball. Now, you could argue, and maybe rightly so, that some of that is because we've only got two midfielders. And maybe that's the case. But that was also the case under Ten Hag. That was also the case under Solskjaer. You know, like we've been a team for a long time that looks better when we have less of the ball, and we can't play out from the back very well. Think of some of the goals we conceded under Ten Hag. Even just in those first two games under Ten Hag, when we wanted to be a play out from the back team, we had to scrap it, and never really got back to it before Ten Hag was eventually sacked. The issue with United's midfield has been going on for years across different players and different managers. And it needs massively addressing, but I don't think trying to fit, you know, and we talked about this before, but let's say we went to a 3 in midfield and that gives Bruno a bit more space, whatever. You go to a back 4, 3 in midfield, instantly your fullbacks are doing less attacking. They just have to, because you can't have 7, like I said, maybe for the last 10 minutes against 10 men, you've got 7 men on the back line. But typically people have a sort of 3-2-5 or something around a 3-2-5 in attack. A lot of times is what people have. Whether it's a 4 at the back, you'll have one fullback pushing up on the attacking side, the other one will tend to tuck in or either go in midfield. You'll have your midfield 3, one of them will push further up and join the attacking line. Like that, it's not everyone, but a lot, you know, generally speaking, a lot of teams do that. And we do that. But the problem is the midfield can't keep possession very well. So you can still sort of tick all the right boxes formation-wise and sort of call it a 4 at the back, but then fundamentally you need your fullbacks to be good going forward either way, and you need your midfielders to be able to keep the ball. We don't have either of those two things. Ahmad can do it going forward, so that's one tick there. On the left-hand side, we just don't create anything from that side. We're talking, I don't know if it was off camera, but think of the last sort of, I don't know, 7 or 8 goals that we've scored, maybe 10 goals that we've scored. Most of them were either delivered from or just sort of shot from the right-hand side. Everything comes down the right. And that's a real worry. And you know, the manager can't invent a left wing back that knows what he's doing and just play him. It's the same with the midfielders. You know, Bruno Fernandes is a fantastic creative player and takes loads of risks, which is great when you're really far up the pitch. But when you're not, sometimes that is an issue. And you need someone. And if you're going to have one player like that, you need someone next to him that's an absolute metronome, that keeps the ball, that's always there, a little bouncing board, an Elliot Anderson, a Michael Carrick, a Paul Scholes, someone that is just a safe pair of hands on the ball and can make, you know, 150 passes a game if you need him to. And we don't have that. And I think that because we don't have that, Amorim has decided to be a bit more flexible and said it in his press conference before the game, as I mentioned in. And then all of a sudden, when we aren't able to do something that we all know we can't do, it's the system's fault again. I just don't think that it is. And that's not to say I don't have any issues with the system.
Yeah.
Because people will think that I'm saying that this system's amazing and, you know, why aren't we winning games? I do have issues, and I have issues with the team selection yesterday. I have issues with what subs were made and when. I have issues with what we did in the last 15, 20 minutes. And we could have gone for it a little bit more. And at that point, I would have taken a centre-back off for Shea Lacey, maybe, and have two holding back on their one striker and just take a chance.
I wouldn't have minded seeing something like that. I wouldn't have minded seeing, because where I was stood, I was looking at Shaw, Yoro and De Ligt, and I just thought you could sacrifice one of them.
And like, maybe for the last 10 minutes, because it does really open you up.
Like it does. Yeah. But certainly you're right. Because Shaw, I had a particular bugbear about his urgency just wasn't there.
Yeah.
And I just thought, he's not doing anything here. Just do something else. And that was really annoying to me. And I don't want to just single him out because it was a bad performance by almost everyone. But even in particular, especially with the last 10 minutes, I mean, you were talking earlier, and someone who's been at the club 11 years now.
Yeah.
To put that level of performance in against 10 men at Old Trafford when there's a chance to go into the Champions League places in a whole sea of unforgivability, if that's even a word, he stood out as particularly bad. Would you like to see Amorim experiment at all? Because there's times I understand, like, everyone's caught up with this system, tactics, and we've seen it in games where he tweaks it and he's changed it, and we've seen all that. Would you like to see him give a different formation a go just once? Like, if he did a 4-3-3, say, against Palace, let's just say he went, look, we're going to try 4-3-3 against Palace. I haven't got the players that I want. I need an Elliot Anderson, or he probably won't name him, but I need a different midfielder because Casemiro and Bruno can't do it all on their own. They're not that type of guy. So I'm going to put Cobby in there or whatever and go to a flat back four and have, I don't know, Bruno, Cobby, Casemiro and, you know, Mbumo, let's say, Mbumo, Mount and, I don't know, Cheeto, albeit.
Yeah. Who are you having as your fullbacks?
In this situation, maybe, let's say he gives Luke Shaw at left back, Dalot at right back. Okay. Or Luke Shaw at left back, Dalot at right back, just off the top of my head. And then you had Ahmad as part of your front three, Mount and Mbumo as your striker. Let's say he just did that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying that's what he should do or will. Would you be okay with that if he gave it a go? Because just before I let you answer that, the only reason I think this is I remember when Ollie came in, and he just brought Pogba back in after Jose, and it was like that three midfield of Matic, Herrera and Pogba, and it worked really well, and it was like 4-3-3. I think you had Lingard and Marcus and Martial, and then it became obviously Mason Greenwood a bit later on. It worked really well, and then when you got one or two injuries, it went to pot, and it just fell off a cliff. And then when Ollie came back, or we sort of rejigged it was like McFred won it, and then do you know what I mean? He changed it a little bit, which I think he had to do because it obviously wasn't working, especially with the injuries. And when you lose, it was like a machine where you take one cog out, it all fell apart. Yeah. Would you like to see him give that a go, or do you think that would be a mistake from him? Because one thing that, you know, whether you like Amorim or not, you question him, he does seem to at least start the game with that setup. And I think we've had 34 Premier League games, 9 wins, 18 losses, 7 draws. So it's not wholly successful, if we're being kind. Do you think it is a time to change it, or would you stick to your guns because this is what you do and it's up to these players to get it into their heads?
If he wanted to change it and make tweaks, I wouldn't be against it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that 3 at the back or 5 at the back is the best and only formation. I don't think that's the case. So if he thought the best thing right now is to do this, fine, go for it. But I don't think the results would be that much better, personally. And I think when you look at, you mentioned before about a couple of injuries under Ole and things fell apart.
Massively.
Look at Man City last season.
Yeah.
Rodri gets injured. They are shit for 2-3 months while they're trying to work out how we navigate this, how we deal without our best player. Look at Liverpool this season. Nothing has gone wrong particularly. Players have just got a little bit older. They won the league last season. They've lost 6 of their last 7 games. The Premier League is so ruthless, so unforgiving now, that if you aren't on it week in, week out, you lose. And that's not just United going through this, by the way. Because even with losing that game, we're still only 2 points off 4th, or 3 points off 4th. It's not.
It's very tight.
It's so tight. So and everyone is capable of doing it. Aston Villa, who are one of the most informed teams in the league, they're 4th place. If the season ended right now, they'd get Champions League football. Did not score a goal till the 5th week of the season. Didn't score. Yeah. Like not didn't win. Literally didn't score a goal for 5 weeks. That's how hard it is if you aren't firing on all cylinders. So we could see from the first 10 minutes. We were saying it on the watch along. We're not at it today. What you mentioned about Luke Shaw, that sluggish, sort of almost fatigued look to the whole team from last season was back. And I think that's a mentality thing personally. And I think the manager has a big job to play in instilling that mentality, creating an environment in training where there is only one way to play and it's at 100%. But I don't think he's not trying to do that. And maybe you can say it's a weakness of his at the moment that for that particular game we didn't see it. But we did see it against Sunderland, against Liverpool, against Chelsea, even in the first halves against Tottenham and Newcastle and Forest, we saw it, that intensity, it was there. Against Fulham, I know we didn't win the game, but the first 30 minutes, there was no doubt we were on it. That wasn't there against Everton. And that needs sorting. That can't happen at every game. But I don't think that changing the system is necessarily going to fix that. Okay. I think there's a reason why Amorim references intensity more than he references 5 at the back or 3 at the back, because that is a fundamental part of any team in the Premier League, whether you're Villa playing a 4 at the back, whether you're Liverpool who are champions playing a 4 at the back, or whether Man United who were shit last season playing a 5 at the back. If you're not on it, you will just lose. And that goes for any single team. The only team that hasn't had a spell like that in the last 2-3 years is Arsenal. And part of that is because they've got so many players in their squad now who can keep that intensity up. Yeah. And you have to give credit to the manager as well. But everyone else in the league has had horrendous spells over the last 2 years, including the champions in both of the last 2 seasons the following year. So I think United have to kind of accept that it's not just the system. No. And this intensity has to come from within a little bit. No, I kind of agree with that. Would you want him to change it? I wouldn't mind if he did. Yeah. I don't think you should be married to one system. The reason I say that, I'm a sort of, I grew up on Sir Alex Ferguson and I watched him change constantly. The first great United side I saw under Fergie was from 93 to 94, 92 to 94, 4-4-2, that's how it was. You fast forward a little bit and then that carried on for quite some years. Then you had 4-3-3. I remember going to Old Trafford when we played Arsenal and you had the Silver Twins as wing backs and it was like 3-5-2 against Arsenal in the FA Cup and everyone was like, what is he doing? He'd change it if he needed to. And I think Amorim's got an advantage of sorts because he can say, look, I haven't got the personnel I need. You know my system, you know what I want to do. And we've had some success over the last 4 or 5 weeks or whatever it was with the system, with those 3 wins that we had. However, without the right personnel, I can't persist with what I'm trying to do, which could send a message to the board of look, can we wait past January to bring in a midfielder? Because this is another question I want to get to. How concerned are you about our over-reliance on Casemiro? Because we've spoken about Casemiro a lot and how well he's been playing this season, and he has been playing very well this season, I'm not denying that. But this United team in its current guise seems to be so heavily reliant on Casemiro that once he goes off, which he invariably does, we seem to not fall apart, but it's like we're not nearly as good. And he's 34 in February. He rarely finishes a game. He's prone to now and again getting himself suspended. He's already done it once this season already. When he's on a yellow, you have to take him off for his own good, as we saw against Everton. How much of a worry is that for you? Because it doesn't feel as though we have a plan B without Casemiro that works. Yeah, it is a concern. You shouldn't be relying on, unless they're, I know obviously Casemiro has been world class in the past, but he's had as many sort of under par seasons as he's had above par seasons since he got to United, or certainly 50-50 maybe with the last sort of, he was brilliant his first season, then poor for a long time, and then he's been decent again this season. And that isn't ideal. And I think there's a second part to this. One is we are better when he plays 100%. Defensively, he's good in the air. He's scored 3 goals this season.
Even that's pretty decent.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah,
the strikers that are jealous of that.
And he offers a threat in both boxes, which is really important, especially modern Premier League with all the set pieces. But I think the second part to this is we also look worse in the last 25 minutes of games generally. And he happens to just not be on the pitch then because he's too tired. I think that especially when we score first, there's still a fragility to us. Maybe that's a physical fragility in terms of fitness and just overall athleticism of the squad. But also there's a massive confidence issue still at United. And that doesn't go away because you win 3 games in a row. When you look at the sea of the last 2 years, you got 3 games in a row here and the rest of it has been just hell. You don't have maximum confidence after those games. We do look better, but I also think when you're hanging on against, think about those games where Casemiro's come off and we've dropped points this season. We're hanging on in a lot of these games. Liverpool, Brighton, I wouldn't say hanging on, but we certainly made it difficult for ourselves with the 2 goals. Chelsea, which was the game we played the full 90 in?
Forest.
But then the Tottenham game again.
We had that crazy... I want to say 5 minutes after the break, didn't we, against Forest? But it was a little bit longer than that because we were all over the gaff for about 20 minutes.
So in that game, after he came off, I think we didn't concede.
In what game, sorry?
In the Tottenham game, after he came off, did we concede? Well,
yeah, because we were winning 1-0, weren't we, to the 85th minute?
But this is what I mean. So I think that we're panicking late on in games,
right?
And he happens to not be on the pitch at that time.
Yeah,
I think obviously Casemiro does make a big difference, but I don't think it's all because he goes off. Is what I'm trying to say.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
I think it's because the pressure is mounting and mounting and mounting, like the game yesterday.
Yeah.
We lost 1-0 when he was on and drew 0-0 when he was off.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not, but I don't think it's because of him. I'm not blaming him for the goal, but I just think because we've scored first in so many games this season, we happen to be hanging on at the end when he's left. The bigger issue for me isn't that we struggle when he's gone off, it's that we can't rely on our central midfielder to play 90 minutes, ever, except once. That can't carry on. He's missing a third of every game. And I get it, he's 33 and you can't be everywhere. You can't, time stops for no man and all that. But I do think that if we're all worried about Mbeumo going to the AFCON for 5 games. We literally lose Casemiro for a third of all the games this season because he has to go off after 60 minutes.
It's so troubling to that because we are reliant on him. We are.
Yeah.
And he can't play the 90 minutes. Like, if he could, he would.
Yeah.
Amorim's not, I know some people may disagree, Amorim's not thick. He knows what he's doing. Like, he's not taking off a player he needs because he just fancies it.
No.
He's taking him off because he knows he's running out of steam. And it's like he's no longer doing what he was doing earlier on in the game towards the last stage of the game, so I've got to bring him off. I think there's one game as well, I can't remember which one it was, where Casemiro said he had to come off. And for the yellow card against Everton, I understood completely why Amorim did what he did, because we saw it against Chelsea, where he got a yellow card against 10 men. The referee's always going to be keen to give you another one to even it up, because referees bizarrely love doing that. And Amorim just went, I can't risk it, get him off, which I understood, and I kind of agreed with it at the time. It's all right being captain hindsight and saying, should have kept him on. Well, I understood why he didn't.
Yeah, me too.
So I do feel for Amorim on that front, because it's not his fault he's not got another option, because he didn't buy Manuel Ugarte, and he obviously doesn't rate him. And to be fair, from what we've seen of Ugarte a lot of the time when he comes on, he's not been brilliant, has he?
No.
So there is that sort of problem that Amorim's got. And again, this ties back to maybe he does need to sort of... Demand's probably too strong a word, and maybe he's not in a position to demand anything because of his current predicament in terms of the results. But does he need to speak to Ineos and Jason Wilcox, who not long ago was giving interviews to everyone saying how wonderful everything is, and say to him, look, I need another midfielder, and I need him now or in January. Like, we cannot continue with a 33, almost 34-year-old.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what system you want to talk about. We still need that midfielder. We know we do. Even if you played 3 in midfield, we still need another one. You still have to go out and buy someone eventually, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Because you couldn't just rely on the midfield options we've got. Because the jury's out on Ugarte. Kobe Mainoo we all love, but he's barely featured this season. Bruno Fernandes, again, fantastic player. Bit up and down this season. We don't know what the future's going to hold with him. We don't know how long he's going to be at the club.
Yeah.
Maybe he's getting his head turned. Head turn might be a strong word, but maybe Saudi come back in and there's another conversation there. Casemiro we've already spoken about. And then what are the other central midfield options?
That's it.
That's what I mean.
Literally it, yeah.
You know what I mean? Sekakoni's a kid. Like, Toby Colley's gone out on loan, and I think he's had an injury. There's no one who's central midfielder is there ready and waiting.
No.
So no matter what, we need one. and I don't know how viable it is in terms of the finances and stuff like that, but I'd certainly be pushing for it if I was Ruben Amorim. Yeah. I'd certainly be saying, because my worry with Ruben Amorim is, and I just wanted to get your take on this before we wrap up, is how long has he got to sort of be given time to fix this? If at the end of the season we finish 9th, is he done? And if we don't get a midfielder, does that happen? I mean, we might get a midfielder, it might happen anyway, but I certainly think we've got a better chance of finishing higher up the table if he brings a midfielder in. So there's that element. And also, just one final point, what's get your thoughts on. How much, forget about the system, right? Just forget the formation, system, tactics, anything you want to talk about on that front. Are you concerned at all of him being able to motivate some of these players, or do you think that that's on them, or both? Because, yes, we've got some late equalisers and we've got some late winners as well, where you go, okay, these players are fighting for him, and I've said that myself on this channel. However, there's some games where you see heads dropping, and there's a lot of times where we come out for the second half not looking as good as the first half, and that worries me a little bit, where I'm saying, is this manager getting into these players' heads like he should be?
On the midfield point to start with, I think if we can get a good midfielder in January, we should do.
Yeah.
Because we know what we need. We've known what we need for a while. It's not a rash and rushed decision.
No.
It's obvious we need a ball playing. And I don't think personally they have to be the fastest and strongest, but they need to be someone that throws their weight around a little bit.
I agree.
Like someone, I know I wouldn't want him, but like last season, McAllister at Liverpool, he's not the biggest, most athletic guy, but he's just a fucking workhorse, and he's going to stick his hip into you, and he's going to put his legs across you, and he's going to, body check you, and you're not going to beat him physically, even though he's not a great athlete.
That's why I know it's a different type of player. That's why I, at one point, wanted us to go for Palhinha.
Yeah.
Before he went to Spurs. Yeah. I just thought he could do a job for us.
Yeah.
Like in that sort of getting stuck in mould. I know he's a slightly different player than McAllister, but just having someone like that in our midfield, I thought would have helped us.
Yeah.
I know you could look. He's been player of the match for some games for Spurs. He's been put on goals, and he's had games where the game's passed him by. So you might even push back on that and say, Jay, really. But I get your point.
Yeah, and so we need someone like that, and we have done for a while. We've needed it since before we bought Ugarte.
Yeah.
Ideally, someone who can win a header once in a while.
That's so important now, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like when I was a kid or when I was younger, that wasn't really a consideration. I thought with midfielders. No one really cared. And it's like now it's become a much more important part of the game, hasn't it?
Yeah, massively.
People are thinking more about how good aerial is this midfielder.
Yeah.
Where when you're back in the day and you're looking at Scholes and people like that. I know he could win headers and that, but it wasn't.
No, it wasn't his game. But yeah, so we need someone like that. And if we can get them in January, then go for it. Because the budget for this year, we're already on it now.
Yeah.
That ends at the end of June anyway. So if you're going to buy someone at the start of the summer, you might as well buy them.
Bruno
now.
Fernandes was that, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
We dipped into the following season's or summer's transfer kit to bring him in the January.
And the other thing to remember is the difference between finishing 9th and no European football and finishing 5th in Champions League football is about 100 million quid.
So it's worth it.
So it's very much worth it.
You're doing the sums.
Yeah. So it's massively worth it just to get them through the door anyway, because it's not like, if we spent 50 million on, let's say Palhinha now who's 30 or whatever, then you'd be like, what have we done? But if you spend 50 million or 90 million on someone who's 23, you've got 10 years out of them anyway. Yeah. So I would 100% go for that, because I think, to your point, if United do finish 9th this season, it's going to be a real uphill battle for him to keep his job.
Yeah.
I think we have to be in the European places, especially with the fact that we've got no Europe this season. On the motivation point, up until this week, I wouldn't have said that now. And I still won't sort of come out right and say that I think the players aren't motivated. I think they are. For the last most of this season, I wouldn't have even called it into question, other than maybe the Grimsby game. But the Everton game was really poor, and they did fail to get motivated, whether that was because of themselves. Amorim certainly should have done more to get that going, because he clearly didn't, because they weren't. And on the second half thing, I do think part of that is we've got players that are doing something that is outside of their comfort zone for the first half. They're pushing, they're pressing, they're doing this really sort of hard, heavy running, which doesn't suit a lot of the squad. I think they just get knackered.
Yeah.
I think they're doing something that's uncomfortable for them. Yeah. We haven't got a team full of players that are really good at doing that, and I think that starts to show in the second half of the games. But I don't think they've given up on him, and I don't think he's failing to get them motivated across the board. But against Everton, 100% that happened.
Yeah, I don't want to get too sort of caught up. This isn't just going to review the Everton game.
Yeah,
everything is about Everton. Yes, we have to look at that, but you have to also look at the rest of the season as well. And there's some sort of traits that have gone through the entire season, and there's also traits that came to the front in the Everton game, which were just worse than I've seen almost the entire season. The thing that concerns me about Amorim and Manchester United and everything is we just need this sort of. We need to be able to relax a little bit, and I still don't think we're there yet.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
We're still so stressed.
We're still stressed. There's this feeling amongst the fan base of like, what is going on here? Where is this going? And every game, it feels like there's another sort of almost mountain to climb. Now we're going into the Palace game. It's like if you lose badly against Palace, and it's like, if you lose a few games ahead of the AFCON, then you've got the AFCON. We just need to be able to a point where even if we're sort of kicking on 6th or 7th, I think people will be okay with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Then you can feel okay. We're in touching distance to top 4 or top 5 even, but we're just not there yet, and that's the sort of the concerns I've got. And I think that look, whether you like or loathe Amorim, I think he'll get to the end of the season. I do.
Yeah.
I think that probably makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't particularly see anyone who's waiting in the wings who's going to come in and sort this out straight away. And again, get involved in the comments if you disagree. But I think at the end of the season, we'll have had to see something more than what we've seen so far. I think if we're 10th at the end of the season, after finishing 15th last year, I think he's in trouble. But I'm hopeful that we can kick on a bit, improve, and maybe even go big in January and bring someone in. Joe, I've enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's been
level-headed as always, bro. I appreciate you. Make sure if you're not doing so already, go and check out Joe on the Sloppy Joe's podcast. Don't forget to check out the merchandise as well. There's a link in the description and a pinned comment there. You can check out the merchandise we have got. That's been Joe Smith. I've been Jay Moyer. This has been a look at Ruben Amorim, at Manchester United. Is it all the system? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching.